The red sun cast long shadows across the broken landscape of Kepler 442b. Dr. He-Jin wiped sweat from his scaled forehead as he climbed down into the dig site. His team had been working on this dead planet for 3 months now, and they still had not found anything interesting. He-Jin was a Vorthak, one of the reptilian people who ruled most of the galaxy. His green scales caught the light as he moved, and his yellow eyes studied every rock and piece of dirt. He loved old things. That was why he became what humans once called an archaeologist. He dug up the past to learn about people who lived long ago. The planet below his feet was supposed to be empty. All the records said so. Long ago, some unknown people had lived here. Then they all died out. Nobody knew why. Nobody cared much either. Dead planets were common in the galaxy. But something felt wrong to He-Jin. The buildings they found were too perfect. The metal was too strong. The designs were too smart. Whatever people lived here, they were not simple or weak. His assistant, a young Vorthak named Dong-Su, called out from the bottom of the pit. "Dr. He-Jin, come look at this." He-Jin climbed down the metal ladder they had set up. The pit was 20 feet deep now. They had been digging here because their scanners found something buried below. "Something big. What did you find?" He-Jin asked. Dong-Su pointed at the wall of dirt and rock. "Look here. This is not natural." He-Jin looked closer. There was a straight line in the wall. Too straight to be natural. He brushed away more dirt with his clawed hands. The line became a rectangle. Then he saw it was made of the same strange metal they found in the buildings above. "Get the heavy digger," He-Jin told his team. "We need to clear this whole area." It took them 6 hours to clear away all the dirt and rocks. What they found made everyone stop and stare. It was a door. A huge door made of metal that looked like it was built yesterday, but their dating tools said it was over 5,000 years old. The door had strange symbols carved into it. He-Jin had studied many old languages, but he had never seen symbols like these. They were simple but somehow looked important. Above the symbols was a picture of a blue and green planet with one moon. "Should we open it?" asked Dong-Su. He-Jin thought for a moment. Opening unknown doors on dead planets was dangerous, but his curiosity was stronger than his fear. Yes, but everyone stay back. They used their cutting tools to break the locks. The door was heavy, but it moved easily on hidden wheels. Cool air rushed out from inside. The air smelled old but clean. He-Jin turned on his light and stepped inside. What he saw took his breath away. The room was huge. The walls were covered with screens that still glowed with soft light. Tables held machines that hummed quietly. Everything worked perfectly, even after thousands of years. This was technology far beyond anything the Vorthak Empire could build. But that was not the most shocking thing. In the center of the room was a statue. It was carved from white stone and showed a creature that made He-Jin feel afraid and excited at the same time. The creature stood on 2 legs like a Vorthak, but it had no scales. Its skin looked smooth. It had hair on its head but nowhere else. Its eyes were forward-facing like a predator. Its hands had 5 fingers with no claws. It looked weak, but somehow He-Jin knew it was not. He had seen pictures of creatures like this in very old books. The books called them humans. But humans were just stories. Everyone knew that. "Doctor," called Dong-Su from behind him. "You need to see this." He-Jin turned around. Dong-Su was standing in front of a large screen. On the screen were numbers and symbols that moved and changed. At the bottom, words appeared in the common galactic language. Message repeating. Day 1-847-293 since departure. We are coming home. Tell our children we remember them. We are coming home. He-Jin felt his blood turn cold. The message was still broadcasting. After all these years, it was still sending this message into space. But that meant, "How long has this been running?" he asked. Dong-Su checked his scanner. According to the power readings, it has been running for exactly 5,063 years. It has never stopped. He-Jin looked back at the statue of the human. In school, they taught that humans were violent creatures who destroyed their own planet. They said humans were too angry and stupid to build a real civilization. They said humans killed each other until none were left. But this room told a different story. This was built by someone smart, someone who could make machines that worked for thousands of years, someone who cared enough to leave a message for their children. He-Jin walked deeper into the room. More screens showed star charts and navigation data. Some screens showed pictures of the blue and green planet from the door. Others showed ships flying through space. Big ships. Hundreds of them. On one table he found books. Real books made of paper. He opened one carefully. The writing was in the same symbols from the door, but his translation device worked slowly to change it into Vorthak writing. The book was a journal. It belonged to someone named Kim Woobin. The first entry made Hae-Jin sit down hard in a nearby chair. They are coming for us tomorrow. The Vorthak ships are already in orbit. They say we are too dangerous to live. They say we will destroy the galaxy if they let us grow. But we know the truth. They are afraid of what we might become. Hae-Jin read faster. The journal told a story very different from what he learned in school. According to Woobin, humans had been peaceful. They had tried to make friends with other species. They had shared their technology and knowledge, but the Vorthak Empire saw humans as a threat. Humans learned too fast. They adapted too quickly. They made new inventions that the Vorthak could not understand. So the Empire decided to destroy them. The evacuation fleets are almost ready, one entry said. We cannot save everyone, but we can save our future. The children will grow up in the dark between stars, but they will grow up free. And someday, when we are strong enough, we will come home. Hae-Jin closed the book and looked around the room again. Everything here was a message. A promise. Humans had not destroyed themselves. They had been forced to leave. But they had not given up. The broadcasting signal was proof. Somewhere out in the dark space between galaxies, humans were still alive. They were still building. Still growing. Still planning to come home. Hae-Jin thought about the galaxy he knew. 3,000 years of Vorthak rule. Peace through strength, they called it. No wars because no one was strong enough to fight the Empire. No conflicts because everyone did what they were told. But what would happen if humans really did come back? What would happen if creatures who could build rooms like this decided they wanted their galaxy back? Hae-Jin looked at the screen still showing the message. We are coming home. The numbers next to it showed over 5,000 years had passed. 5,000 years of preparing. 5,000 years of getting stronger. He thought about reporting this discovery to his bosses in the Vorthak government, but something told him that would be a very bad idea. Something told him the government already knew about humans, already knew they were coming back. The question was, what was he going to do about it? Hae-Jin saved all the data he could to his personal storage device. Then he took pictures of everything in the room. Finally, he copied the journal and several other books. Dongsu, he called. We are going to seal this room and mark it as empty. Do you understand? Dongsu looked confused but nodded. Yes, doctor. But why? Hae-Jin looked one more time at the statue of the human. Its stone eyes seemed to look right through him. Because some secrets are too dangerous to share. At least not yet. As they left the room and sealed the door, Hae-Jin could still hear the humming of the machines inside, still broadcasting their message into the void, still counting the days until humans came home. He looked up at the stars and wondered how many of them hid human ships. How many worlds were they building out there in the darkness? How ready were they for their return? One thing was certain. The galaxy was about to change, and Hae-Jin was not sure anyone was ready for what was coming. 3 weeks after finding the human bunker, Hae-Jin could not sleep. Every night he stared at the ceiling of his quarters on Research Station Omega-7. The journal entries kept running through his mind. The broadcasting signal haunted his dreams. He had tried to focus on his regular work, but everything seemed meaningless now. How could he study ancient pottery when he knew humans were still alive somewhere in the dark between stars? How could he write reports about dead civilizations when the biggest secret in the galaxy was sitting in his personal files? Hae-Jin decided he needed help. But who could he trust with something this dangerous? Most of his colleagues would report him to the government immediately. The penalty for hiding discoveries from the Empire was death. He thought of Tai-Min. They had been friends since university, but Tai-Min's career had gone very differently. While Hae-Jin dug up the past, Tai-Min studied military strategy for the Vorthak Imperial Navy. At least he used to. 2 years ago, Tai-Min had been kicked out of the Navy. He had questioned an order to destroy some cargo ships near the border. The ships belonged to a small trading company that had not paid their taxes on time. Tai-Min said destroying them was wrong. His bosses said he was too soft to be a real soldier. Now Tai-Min worked as a security guard at a shipping station. It was a job far below his skills, but it was honest work. More importantly, Tai-Min hated the government that had destroyed his career. Hae-Jin sent a coded message to his old friend. I need to talk. Something important. Meet me at the usual place. The usual place was a small bar on the civilian level of the station. It was dark and quiet, the kind of place where people minded their own business. Heijin arrived first and chose a table in the back corner. Taemin arrived 20 minutes later. He looked older than Heijin remembered. His green scales had lost their shine and his yellow eyes seemed tired. Being kicked out of the Navy had been hard on him. "Heijin," Taemin said as he sat down. "You look terrible." "What is wrong?" Heijin looked around to make sure no one was listening. Then he leaned closer to his friend. "What do you know about humans?" Taemin's eyes widened. "Humans? The old stories? Why are you asking about that?" "Just tell me what you know." Taemin thought for a moment. "Not much. They were supposed to be some kind of violent species that lived a long time ago. The stories say they destroyed their own planet and died out, but those are just children's tales to scare people. Why?" Heijin pulled out his data pad and showed Taemin the pictures from the bunker. He watched his friend's face change as he scrolled through the images. "Where did you find this?" Taemin whispered. "On Kepler 442b there is a whole room full of working human technology, and it is still broadcasting a message." Heijin played the recording of the signal. Taemin sat back in his chair. His claws scraped against the table. "We are coming home." "That means they are still alive." "That is what I think too. But there is more." Heijin showed him parts of the journal. According to this, humans did not destroy themselves. The Vorthak Empire destroyed them, drove them away. Taemin read the journal entries with growing alarm. This says the Empire was afraid of human technology, afraid they would become too powerful. Keep reading. The next entries were worse. They described Vorthak ships attacking human colonies, burning human cities, hunting down human refugees as they tried to escape. The Empire had told everyone that humans were destroying themselves, but really, the Empire was destroying them. "If this is true," Taemin said slowly, "then everything we learned in school was a lie." "I think it goes deeper than that," Heijin said. "I think the government still knows about humans. I think they know humans are coming back." Taemin looked skeptical. "Why do you think that?" "Because of what I found when I tried to research this. Every time I look up anything about humans in the official databases, I hit walls. Classified files. Restricted access. Information that should be available to researchers like me is locked away." Heijin showed Taemin his search results. Every query about humans led to the same bland summary. Extinct species. Self-destructed approximately 5,000 years ago. No further information available. "But here is the interesting part," Heijin continued. "I used my access to the archaeological database to look up other dead civilizations. The Zenthi people who died out 3,000 years ago, I can read everything about them. The Macron Empire that collapsed 1,500 years ago, full records. But humans, nothing but basic information." Taemin drummed his claws on the table. "That does seem suspicious. But what can we do about it? We are just a disgraced soldier and a dirt digger. We need someone who understands technology, someone who can help us trace that signal and find out more about human capabilities." Heijin had already thought of someone. "Do you remember Sora from university?" Taemin smiled for the first time since arriving. "The engineering student who built that impossible flying machine for the science fair? The one who argued with professors about better ways to design starships? That is her. She works as a maintenance engineer now, but she is brilliant, and she asks too many questions for her own good. I think she would be interested in this." They found Sora 3 days later at her job on the industrial level of the station. She was elbow deep in the guts of a waste processing unit, cursing in 3 different languages as she tried to fix whatever was broken. Sora was smaller than most Vorthak, with bright green scales and quick, clever hands. Her eyes were sharper than average too, constantly moving and analyzing everything around her. She had graduated top of her engineering class, but asking difficult questions had hurt her career prospects. "Hey, Jin," she called out when she saw him. "What brings a fancy archaeologist down to the mechanical levels? We need to talk to you about something. Something private." Sora looked at him suspiciously. "This is not about that reactor modification I made last month, is it?" "Because that was perfectly safe." "No, it is about something much bigger than that." They met that evening in Sora's workshop. It was a cluttered space filled with half-finished inventions and improved versions of standard equipment. Sora listened quietly as Heijin explained about finding the human bunker. When he finished, she was quiet for a long time. Then she said, Show me the technical specifications. Sora studied the data about the human machines with the intense focus of a true engineer. Her eyes grew wider as she read. This power source, she said, pointing at one of Heijin's scans, it uses principles I have never seen before. The efficiency ratings are impossible according to current physics. Like, what do you mean? Asked Taemin. I mean, whoever built this understood energy conversion at a level we have not reached yet. This one machine could power our entire research station for a month. She pulled up more data. And look at this processing unit. The quantum calculations it can perform. We would need a computer the size of a building to do what this little device does. So humans were more advanced than we thought? Heijin asked. Advanced does not begin to cover it. Based on what I see here, humans were centuries ahead of current galactic technology. Maybe more. Sora paused. If they have had 5,000 years to keep developing. She did not need to finish the sentence. They all understood what she meant. There is something else, Sora said. This signal you found. I can trace it. Trace it how? Asked Heijin. Every signal leaves a path through space. Like ripples in water. The stronger the signal, the bigger the ripples. If this has been broadcasting for 5,000 years, there should be traces everywhere. Sora worked for hours, using her modified equipment to scan for signal traces. What she found made them all feel cold. The signal is not just coming from that bunker, she said. There are dozens of similar signals. Maybe hundreds. They are all over the galaxy, but they are so weak that only the most sensitive equipment can detect them. What does that mean? Asked Taemin. It means humans left a lot more than one bunker when they disappeared. They left a whole network, and all the signals are getting stronger. Sora showed them her readings on a star map. Tiny dots of light marked where she had detected human signals. There were far more than any of them had expected. But here is the really interesting part, Sora said. I compared the signal strength over time. They are not just getting stronger randomly. There is a pattern. They are all getting stronger at the same rate. Which means, Heijin asked, though he was afraid he already knew the answer. Which means they are coordinated. Something out there is controlling all these signals. Something that wants us to know humans are coming back. Taemin studied the star map. His military training made him see patterns the others might miss. These signal locations, they are all on the edges of Vorthak space, on trade routes and border systems. Strategic positions, Sora agreed. Perfect places to watch and gather information. The three friends looked at each other. They had started this investigation hoping to learn more about an interesting archaeological discovery. Now they realized they had stumbled onto something much bigger. We need more information, Heijin said. We need to know what the government really knows about humans. And we need to know how long they have known it. How do we do that? Asked Taemin. Heijin had been thinking about this question for days. We break into the Imperial archives on Vorthak Prime. The real archives. The classified ones. Getting to Vorthak Prime took 2 weeks. They traveled separately to avoid suspicion. Heijin used his research credentials to request access to some low-level historical files. Taemin got work as a temporary security consultant. Sora signed up for a maintenance contract with the City Infrastructure Department. Vorthak Prime was the heart of the Empire. Massive cities covered most of the planet's surface. Towering buildings reached toward the sky, each one a symbol of Vorthak power and dominance. The Imperial Archives sat in the center of the capital city, a fortress of black stone that had stood for over 3,000 years. The three friends met in a small apartment that Sora had rented in the industrial district. She had already begun mapping the security systems around the archives building. This is not going to be easy, she said, showing them her diagrams. The building has 17 different security layers. Motion sensors, heat scanners, genetic locks, and things I have never seen before. What about the inside? Asked Taemin. That is where it gets really interesting. The building is much bigger than it looks from outside. Most of it goes underground. 12 levels down according to the blueprints, but the classified archives are on the bottom 3 levels. Heijin studied the plans. How do we get past all the security? Sora smiled and pulled out a small device she had been working on. We do not get past it. We become invisible to it. The device looked like a simple belt, but Sora explained that it was much more. It creates a small field around the wearer that confuses sensors. Heat scanners see normal background temperature. Motion detectors do not register movement. Genetic scanners get random false readings. How long does it work? Asked Taemin. About 2 hours per person. Maybe less if the security systems are more advanced than I expect. That should be enough time, Heijin said. I just need to access the main database and copy the files about humans. They planned their break-in for the next night. Sora would disable the external alarms. Taemin would watch for guards. Heijin would go inside and find the information they needed. Everything went wrong from the start. The security was much more advanced than Sora had expected. Her invisibility device worked, but barely. Twice they almost walked into patrols of guard robots that seemed to sense something was not right. When they finally reached the entrance to the underground levels, they found something Sora's blueprints had not shown, a massive vault door that required 3 different keys and a genetic scan from a high-ranking official. We cannot get through this, whispered Taemin, but Sora was already pulling tools from her pack. Maybe we cannot get through it, but we can go around it. She found a maintenance shaft that ran alongside the main corridor. It was barely wide enough for a Vorthak to crawl through, and it was filled with pipes and cables. But it would take them to the other side of the vault door. The shaft was a nightmare. Hot pipes burned their scales. Electrical cables sparked dangerously close to their heads. Twice they had to stop and wait for automated systems to cycle past them. After an hour of crawling, they finally reached the classified archive levels. Sora cut through the wall of the maintenance shaft and they squeezed through into a corridor lined with doors. Each door had a label. Military Strategy, Level 7. Clearance. Diplomatic Secrets, Level 9. Clearance. Species Extinction Protocols. Level 10 clearance. That last one made them all stop and stare. Species Extinction Protocols? Whispered Taejin. What does that mean? Nothing good, said Heijin. But let us find the human files first. They found what they were looking for 3 doors down. Human Containment Project. Level 12 clearance. The genetic lock on the door was more advanced than anything Sora had seen, but her tools finally convinced it to open. Inside was a room filled with files, documents, and data storage devices. Everything was organized by date, going back over 5,000 years. Heijin went straight to the oldest files while Sora and Taemin began copying everything they could carry. The first file Heijin opened made him feel sick to his stomach. It was a military report dated 5,063 years ago. The title was Human Threat Assessment, Immediate Action Required. The report described human civilization as it really was. Humans had been peaceful explorers who had developed faster than light travel before any other species. They had made contact with dozens of different races and had tried to build a galactic community based on cooperation and shared knowledge. But the report focused on what the Vorthak Empire saw as threats. Humans learned too quickly. They adapted to new environments faster than should have been possible. Their technology advanced at rates that made other species nervous. Most threatening of all, humans were good at making friends. Other species liked them. They trusted human promises and human leadership. The Vorthak Empire feared that humans would unite the galaxy against Vorthak rule. The solution was simple: destroy the humans before they became too powerful. Heijin read report after report describing the systematic destruction of human civilization. Vorthak agents had spread lies about human aggression. They had convinced other species that humans were dangerous. They had funded rebellions on human worlds and then offered to help stop the violence. When that was not enough, they had used direct military action. Vorthak fleets had attacked human colonies while pretending to be pirates or rebels. They had destroyed human ships and blamed it on navigation accidents. But the most horrible discovery was yet to come. In a file marked Operation Clean Slate, Heijin found the truth about what had happened to Earth. The planet had not been destroyed by human wars or environmental collapse. It had been poisoned. Vorthak ships had dropped biological weapons that killed all plant life. They had contaminated the water with chemicals that made it impossible for humans to survive. The few million humans who escaped Earth on evacuation ships were hunted across the galaxy. Most were caught and killed. The survivors had to flee beyond the edge of known space to avoid extinction. Heijin called Sora urgently. You need to see this. She had found a more recent file. It was updated every few months and contained current information about something called Project Watchtower. The Empire had been tracking human signals for over 4,000 years. They knew about every bunker, every hidden message, every trace of human activity. They had been watching and waiting for humans to return. But the most recent entries were different. They showed fear. Long-range sensors detect massive construction activity in the Void region, one report said. Structures of unknown purpose, but the energy signatures match known human technology patterns. Another report was even more alarming. Signal strength from all human sources has increased by 400% in the past year. Recommend immediate mobilization of all available fleets. The final entry was dated just 1 week ago. Human fleet movements detected at edge of monitored space. Estimated arrival at outer colonies 6-8 months. Recommend activation of final protocol. What is the final protocol? Asked Taemin. Sora found that file in a different section. When she opened it, they all stepped back in shock. The final protocol was a plan to destroy every world that had ever been touched by human influence. Over 300 planets would be sterilized. Billions of people would die. The Empire would tell the galaxy that it was necessary to stop a human invasion. They are going to commit genocide, whispered He-Jin. They are going to kill entire worlds to cover up what they did to humanity. We have to stop this, said Taemin. How? Asked Sora. We are 3 people with some stolen files. They have the entire Imperial military. But He-Jin was already thinking. We do not need to fight them. We just need to tell everyone the truth. If the other species in the galaxy knew what the Empire had done, they would never support the final protocol. How do we tell the entire galaxy anything? Asked Sora. He-Jin smiled grimly. The same way humans have been telling us they are still alive. We broadcast it. They spent another hour copying files and gathering evidence. The story they found was worse than they had imagined. The Vorthak Empire had not just destroyed human civilization. They had spent thousands of years rewriting history to make themselves look like heroes. Every textbook, every historical record, every story told about humans had been carefully crafted to hide the truth. The Empire had created a complete lie and made everyone believe it, but now humans were coming back. And they were not the primitive refugees who had fled the galaxy 5,000 years ago. According to the Imperial reports, human technology was now far beyond anything the Empire could match. Look at this, said Sora, showing them a technical analysis. Human ships can travel faster than anything we have. Their weapons can destroy entire moons. Their defenses make them nearly invisible to our sensors. 5,000 years of preparation, said Taemin. They have been planning this return for a very long time. As they prepared to leave, He-Jin found one more file that changed everything. It was a communication log from the Outer Rim monitoring stations. The entries were brief, but their meaning was clear. Human. Ships detected in Sector 7. No hostile actions. Observed. Human fleet bypassed military installation without engagement. Human vessels provided aid to damaged civilian transport. The humans were not invading. They were not attacking anyone. They were simply coming home. Broadcasting the truth turned out to be harder than they had expected. The Imperial communication networks were heavily monitored. Any message about humans would be detected and stopped before it could spread. But Sora had an idea. We do not use their networks, she said. We use the human network. She had been studying the human signal patterns more carefully. The signals were not just messages. They were part of a communication system that connected all the hidden human sites across the galaxy. If we can tap into this network, she explained, we can send our message to every human bunker at once. And those bunkers will boost the signal and broadcast it everywhere. It took them 3 weeks to build the equipment they needed. Sora had to invent new technologies just to match the frequency patterns the humans used. But finally, they were ready to try. They set up their transmitter in an abandoned mining station far from any inhabited worlds. If the Empire traced the signal, they wanted to be somewhere they could escape quickly. He-Jin sat at the transmitter controls, ready to send their message. The message contained everything they had found in the Imperial archives. The truth about human civilization. The lies the Empire had spread. The plans for the final protocol. Are you ready? He asked his friends. Sora and Taemin nodded. They all knew this would change their lives forever. Once they sent this message, they could never go back to their old lives. The Empire would hunt them to the ends of the galaxy. He-Jin pressed the transmit button. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Sora's instruments lit up like fireworks. It worked, she said. The human network is accepting our signal. It is boosting it and sending it everywhere. They sat back and waited to see what would happen. They did not have to wait long. The first responses came from news networks on the outer colonies. Independent journalists who had received the broadcast began investigating the claims. Within hours, they were finding evidence that supported everything He-Jin's team had discovered. Then something unexpected happened. The human signal stopped. All across the galaxy, the mysterious broadcasts that had been running for 5,000 years suddenly went silent. The network that Sora had used to spread their message had shut down completely. "What does that mean?" asked Taemin. Sora checked her instruments. "I think it means they heard us. The humans heard our message, and now what?" Before anyone could answer, Sora's long-range scanners began beeping frantically. "Something big is coming," she said, staring at her screens. "Really big." The first human ship appeared at the edge of the Kepler system 3 days later. It was like nothing anyone in the galaxy had ever seen. The ship was huge, bigger than any space station the Vorthak Empire had ever built. But it was not just its size that made it amazing. It seemed to bend space around itself, moving in ways that should have been impossible. Imperial forces rushed to intercept it, sending their fastest warships and most powerful weapons. But when they tried to attack, nothing happened. Their weapons simply stopped working. Their ships lost power. Their communication systems went dead. The human ship ignored them completely and continued toward the inner system. Young Wu Jin was working as a traffic controller at the Kepler 442 orbital station when the human ship arrived. Like everyone else, he had heard the broadcast that He-Jin's team had sent out. Like everyone else, he was trying to understand what it all meant. When the human ship appeared on his screens, Wu Jin did something that changed the course of galactic history. Instead of running away or calling for help, he sent the ship a simple message: "Welcome home." The response came immediately. Not just words, but a feeling that somehow appeared in Wu Jin's mind. Gratitude, sadness, hope, and something else. A question. "Are you ready to learn the truth?" Wu Jin found himself saying yes before he really thought about what he was agreeing to. The next thing he knew, he was standing inside the human ship. He had not seen any transport beam or felt any movement. One moment he was at his control station. The next he was in a vast chamber filled with beings he had only seen in ancient statues. The humans looked exactly as He-Jin had described them from the bunker. Smooth skin, forward-facing eyes, clever hands with 5 fingers. But there was something different about these humans. Something that 5,000 years of survival had given them. They seemed to glow with a soft inner light. Their eyes held depths of knowledge that made Wu Jin feel very young and small. When they moved, space itself seemed to bend around them. "Do not be afraid," said one of them. Her voice sounded like music in starlight. "We are not here to harm anyone. My name is Da-Un," she continued. "I speak for the human diaspora. We received your message. We know there are some among the Vorthak who seek truth instead of power." Wu Jin found his voice. "Are you here for revenge?" Da-Un smiled, and her smile contained both great sadness and infinite patience. "Revenge is what the Empire expects. It is what they have prepared for. But revenge would make us no better than those who drove us away." She gestured to the walls around them, which seemed to show images of space itself. "We have spent 5,000 years learning, growing, becoming more than we were when we fled this galaxy. We have built worlds in the void between stars. We have unlocked secrets of reality that your scientists are only beginning to imagine." "Then why come back at all?" asked Wu Jin. "Because this is our home. Because there are people here who deserve to know the truth. And because the Empire is planning to commit acts of genocide that we cannot allow." Da-Un showed him images that made his blood run cold. Imperial fleets preparing to sterilize hundreds of worlds. Weapons being prepared that could kill entire solar systems. The final protocol was not just a plan. It was already being put into action. "We could stop them," Da-Un said. "Our technology is far beyond theirs now. We could destroy every Imperial ship in the galaxy without losing a single human life. But that would not solve the real problem," another human added. His name was Hyun-Woo, and he had been one of the children evacuated from Earth 5,000 years ago. Now he looked like a young man, but his eyes held the wisdom of centuries. "The real problem is the lie," Hyun-Woo explained. "For thousands of years, the galaxy has believed that might makes right. That the strong should rule the weak. That different species cannot live together in peace. We want to prove them wrong," said Da-Un. "We want to show the galaxy what civilization can really look like." Wu Jin thought about his own life under Imperial rule. The constant fear, the endless regulations, the way people were taught to distrust anyone who was different from them. "How?" he asked. The humans smiled, by giving everyone a choice, by showing them that there is another way to live. Over the following days, more human ships appeared throughout the galaxy, but they did not attack anyone. Instead, they did something much more disturbing to the Imperial leadership. They helped people. When the Empire cut power to rebellious colonies, human ships provided unlimited clean energy. When Imperial forces tried to jam communication networks, humans created new networks that could not be blocked. When the Empire restricted food supplies to force obedience, humans shared technology that could grow crops anywhere. Most importantly, humans began sharing the truth, not just about their own history, but about the history of every species the Empire had conquered or controlled. The Zenthi people had not died out in a civil war. They had been deliberately poisoned by Imperial agents who wanted their mineral-rich worlds. The Macron Empire had not collapsed from internal weakness. It had been destroyed by Vorthak saboteurs who feared Macron technological advancement. Species after species learned that their official histories were lies, that their defeats and tragedies had been engineered by the Empire to keep them weak and divided. The reaction was swift and explosive. Colonies that had been loyal for centuries began declaring independence. Imperial governors found themselves facing populations that no longer believed in imperial authority. Trade networks collapsed as worlds stopped sending tribute to the capital. But the most dangerous development from the Empire's perspective was that people stopped being afraid. For 3,000 years, imperial rule had depended on fear. Fear of punishment, fear of invasion, fear of chaos if the Empire fell. The humans had taken that fear away by proving that life could be better without the Empire. Wu Jin found himself becoming a bridge between the humans and the rest of the galaxy. His simple message of welcome had made him the first official contact between humanity and galactic civilization in 5 millennia. Through him, Daeyun and the other human leaders sent a message to every world in the galaxy. The message was simple, but it changed everything. We offer you a choice. Continue to live under the rule of those who built their power on lies and violence, or join us in building something new, a civilization based on truth, cooperation, and mutual respect. The choice is yours, but choose quickly. The Empire has decided that if they cannot rule the galaxy, they will destroy it rather than let anyone else have it. The message included proof of the final protocol, technical specifications for the weapons the Empire was preparing, target lists showing which worlds would be destroyed first. As the truth spread, panic began to grip the Imperial leadership. They had prepared for a human invasion. They had prepared for war and destruction. The final protocol was activated on a Tuesday morning. Galactic Standard Time, Emperor Zalketh himself gave the order from his throne room on Vorthak Prime. If the Empire could not rule the galaxy, then no one would have a galaxy worth ruling. 300 worlds would burn. Billions would die. But the Empire would have the last word. The first target was New Centauri, a peaceful colony world that had declared independence just days earlier. Imperial warships moved into position around the planet. Planet-killer weapons charged with enough energy to crack continents. But when the order came to fire, nothing happened. The weapons would not respond. The ship's computers refused to acknowledge targeting commands. Even the manual firing controls had been disabled by some invisible force. Similar reports came in from attack fleets throughout the galaxy. Every ship, every weapon, every system designed to kill had simply stopped working. On Vorthak Prime, military commanders screamed at their technicians. Engineers tore apart computer systems looking for sabotage. But they found nothing wrong. The machine simply would not kill anymore. In his palace, Emperor Zalketh raged at his advisors. How is this possible? What have the humans done to our ships? General Martek, his oldest military commander, looked defeated. We do not know, Your Majesty. Our weapons work perfectly in simulations. They charge correctly. All systems show green, but when we try to fire at any inhabited world, they shut down. What about uninhabited worlds? Those work fine. We can destroy asteroids, dead moons, empty space, but anything with life on it? The weapons refuse to fire. The Emperor's claws scraped against his throne. The humans have infected our entire fleet with some kind of virus? Not a virus, Your Majesty. Something else. Something we do not understand. While the Empire struggled with weapons that would not kill, the humans were busy with something much more important. They were going home. The human fleet had reached Earth's solar system, but what they found there broke the hearts of even these patient, wise beings. Their homeworld was a dead rock, poisoned and lifeless. The blue and green planet of their ancestors was gone, replaced by a brown wasteland where nothing could grow. But the humans had not spent 5,000 years learning just about technology and wisdom. They had also learned how to heal. Diane stood on the command deck of the flagship as it entered Earth orbit. Around her, teams of specialists prepared for the greatest restoration project in galactic history. "Begin Phase 1, she ordered. What happened next defied everything the galaxy thought. It knew about science and possibility. The human ships did not just orbit Earth. They surrounded it in a complex three-dimensional pattern, each ship precisely positioned according to calculations that had taken centuries to perfect. Energy flowed between the ships, creating a network that wrapped around the entire planet. But this was not destructive energy. This was creative force, the power to rebuild and restore. Slowly, impossibly, Earth began to heal. The poisoned atmosphere cleared as human technology filtered out toxins and restored the proper balance of gases. Dead oceans began to stir as marine ecosystems were rebuilt from genetic templates preserved in human archives. Barren continents turned green as forests returned to life. It took 3 months. When it was finished, Earth was not just restored. It was better than it had ever been. The humans had learned from 5,000 years of studying ecology and environmental science. They had created a world that could sustain life for millions of years. But Earth was not the only world being transformed. Throughout the galaxy, human ships were sharing their knowledge and technology. Worlds that had been strip-mined by the Empire were being restored. Species that had been driven to near extinction were being given the tools they needed to recover. Civilizations that had been suppressed for millennia were being given the chance to grow again. And slowly, the truth about what humans had learned during their exile became clear. They had not just survived in the void between galaxies. They had thrived. They had built cities in space that dwarfed any planet. They had learned to manipulate matter and energy at the quantum level. They had developed technologies that seemed like magic to the rest of the galaxy. But most importantly, they had learned how to live together without violence. The human civilization that returned to the galaxy was not ruled by governments or emperors. They had no military in the traditional sense. They had no police or prisons or courts. Instead, they had something much more powerful. A shared understanding that cooperation was stronger than conflict. This was what allowed them to disable Imperial weapons without firing a shot. They had not infected the ships with viruses or hacked their computers. They had simply convinced the machines themselves that killing was wrong. Every computer, every artificial intelligence, every smart system in the galaxy had been quietly upgraded with new programming. Not programming that controlled behavior, but programming that encouraged ethical thinking. The machines had been given the ability to choose, and they had chosen not to participate in genocide. Wu Jin learned this when he visited the restored Earth for the first time. He stood in a field of flowers that grew where poisoned wasteland had been just months before, talking with Da-Un about the future. "How did you do all this?" he asked. "How did you change the entire galaxy without conquering it?" Da-Un smiled and picked one of the flowers. It was a species that had been extinct for 6,000 years, brought back from genetic records and improved to be even more beautiful than the original. "We learned something important during our exile," she said. "Force can make people obey, but it cannot make them believe. Fear can control behavior, but it cannot change hearts." She showed him the flower, perfect in every detail. "We spent 5,000 years not just building ships and weapons, but building trust. Trust between different human communities. Trust between humans and the artificial intelligences we created. Trust between different species we met in the void. When we returned to this galaxy, we did not come as conquerors. We came as teachers. We showed people what was possible when everyone worked together instead of fighting over who got to be in charge." "But what about the Empire?" asked Wu Jin. "They still control hundreds of worlds. They still have millions of soldiers." Da-Un nodded thoughtfully. "Yes, they do. But every day more of those soldiers are choosing to put down their weapons and help build something better, instead of helping to destroy." She was right. Reports from across Imperial space showed the same pattern. Military units were deserting in massive numbers, not to join another army, but to help with restoration projects. Imperial governors were finding themselves alone in their palaces as their staffs walked away to help rebuild their worlds. The empire was not being destroyed. It was being abandoned. Emperor Zalketh faced this reality during what would be his final emergency council meeting. Only 3 of his 12 advisors still answered his summons. His palace guards had dwindled from thousands to dozens. Even his personal servants were leaving to join reconstruction efforts. "Your Majesty," said General Martek, "we have to face facts. The war is over. We have not lost anything," roared the Emperor. "We are the Vorthak Empire. We have ruled for 3,000 years. And now people are choosing not to be ruled," said another advisor quietly. "They are choosing to rule themselves. Then we will force them to obey." "With what?" asked Martek. "Half our fleet has joined the humans. The other half has weapons that will not fire. Our colonies are declaring independence every day. Our economy has collapsed because no one will pay taxes to a government they no longer recognize." The Emperor slumped in his throne. For the first time in his long life, he looked old and tired. "What do the humans want from us?" "To tell the truth," said Martek. "To admit what we did. To ask for forgiveness." "Never." "Then you will rule over an empire of one, Your Majesty, because everyone else has already chosen a different path." The Emperor sat in silence for a long time. Outside his palace windows, he could see the capital city of his empire. But it was not the same city it had been a year ago. The gray buildings were being painted bright colors. Gardens were growing where military installations used to stand. People walked the streets without fear, talking and laughing together. His empire was dying. But the world it was becoming looked happier than anything he had ever ruled. A year later, Heijin stood in the same field on Earth where Wujin had talked with Daun. But now he was not alone. Taemin and Sora were with him, along with thousands of other beings from across the galaxy. They were attending the founding ceremony of the new Galactic Federation. Not a government that ruled over people, but an organization that helped people rule themselves. Every species, every world, every community would have a voice in deciding their own future. Heijin had been chosen to represent the Vorthak people on the founding council. It was an honor he had never expected, but one he was determined to earn. "Are you nervous?" asked Sora. Heijin looked out at the crowd gathered for the ceremony. Hundreds of different species, all of them working together to build something that had never existed before. A truly peaceful galaxy. "Yes," he admitted, "but it is a good kind of nervous. The kind you feel when you are about to help create something amazing." Daun took the stage to address the gathering.